Hi, you guys. Welcome to Audrey's reading area. Thank you guys so much for being here with me, especially through these hard times with no Wi-Fi. Till next week. Anyway, thanks again for being here at Audrey's reading area. And please, hit like, hit share, go to YouTube, go to Audrey's reading area, and hit subscribe. Thank you guys so much. Now, today is Friday, supposed to be Inspirational Friday, but I got another book that I'm going to read to you guys. I might do another one a little later for the inspiration. Shout out to my mom. Hey, Mom. Yes, so I might do another one a little later, but right now I'm going to do Hans Christian Andersen, The Princess and the Pea. The Princess and the Pea. How about that? That is another book that was read to me when I was little, when I was young. So I hope you guys enjoy. The Princess and the Pea. It's a Hans Christian Andersen book. A long time ago in a land far away, I'm going to turn this a little bit so you guys can see. In a land far away, there lived a king and queen who had just one son. One son. The prince was grown up, and it was a time for him to marry a princess. And she must be a real princess, the prince told the king and queen. But there were no princesses in the land where he lived. So the king and queen arranged for the prince to travel to strange and distant lands to find a bride. The prince traveled north through frozen lands until he came to a castle where a princess lived. This princess was tall and fair, with skin as soft as a peach. But when she laughed, she sounded like a braying donkey. And though she was smart, she was also vain and boastful. Vain meaning she's too much into herself. Not only am I exquisitely beautiful, she told the prince, but I can name every capital city of every country in the world. And I can speak 24 languages. You will never meet anyone as smart as me. A real princess would never be so boastful, thought the prince. I can't marry her. I think he's right. So the prince traveled south through hot, sandy deserts until he came to a palace where a princess lived. This princess had long, gleamy hair, the color of midnight, and a skin that smelled of sweet almonds. She almost had the most enormous feet. But though she was very beautiful, the princess would not speak to the prince. She would not even smile at him. She held her pretty nose high in the air. A real princess would never be so proud, thought the prince. I can't marry her. And so the disappointed prince traveled east through misty lands over windswept mountains until he came to a mansion where a prince lived. This princess was small and neat, with rippling red hair. She had a charming smile and a lovely voice, but she told the most shocking lies. Last night I ate a whole elephant for dinner, she told the prince. It was as big as this room. Really, said the prince, how amazing. A real princess would never tell such shocking lies, thought the prince. I can't marry her. A year had passed when the prince returned home from his travels, weary, sad, and lonely. I will just have to remain a bachelor, he told the king and queen. One evening, not long after the prince had come home, a terrible storm blew in from the west. Outside the window, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and huge raindrops fell from the sky. Inside the palace, the prince sat with the king and queen by the fireside, listening to the storm. Suddenly, There was a knock at the castle door. The king was so surprised that he went to answer it himself. There, standing in the windy doorway, was the most bedraggled young woman the king had ever seen. Bedraggled, I should say. Water ran down her hair and face, and her clothes were sopping wet and muddy. Water ran in through the toes of her shoes and out again through the heels. "Good evening, your majesty," she said to the king, courtesying politely. "I am a princess, and I need shelter for the night. May I please come in?" The king could hardly believe that this soggy, sorry-looking creature was a princess, but he invited her in anyway. "Of course," he said. "Please come in out of the storm. We will gladly give you shelter for the night." That was nice of him. When the king told the prince that a princess had turned up at the door, the prince was very eager to meet her, but the queen told him he would have to wait. The princess said that she couldn't possibly meet you wet and bedraggled, the queen explained. "She has gone to have a bath and change into some dry clothes." "That's a good sign," said the prince. "But how can we be certain that she is a real princess?" "I have an idea," said his mother. You know, we mommies, we be getting these ideas. "Just leave everything to me." Off went the queen to the kitchen. She asked the cook for a single tiny dried pea. A short while later, the princess arrived in the main hall dressed in the queen's clothes. Her hair shone, her cheeks were rosy, and her eyes sparkled merrily to match her smile. She certainly looked like a real princess. The prince and princess sat beside the fire and talked for hours. Hours. That's a good thing. The princess was smart, charming, and seemed honest. The prince was enchanted, but he still wasn't sure that the princess was a real princess. Meanwhile, the queen went to the best guest room carrying a single tiny dried pea. In the bedroom, she put the pea under the bed mattress. Then she asked the servant to bring another mattress to put on top of the first, and then another mattress and another and another. And at last, there were 20 mattresses on the bed. But even that wasn't enough. The queen told the servant to put 20 soft, cozy quilts on top of the 20 mattresses. Then she had a ladder brought for the princess. It's a lot of mattresses, huh? As soon as the queen was satisfied that the bed was ready, she showed the sleeper princess to her room. The princess was surprised when the queen brought her to the bedroom with its towering bed and tall ladder. But she didn't protest or complain. She thanked the queen and wished her good night. The princess climbed the ladder to the very top of the pile of mattresses and quilts. Sighing contentedly, she settled down to sleep. But the princess did not sleep a wink. She tossed and turned all night. By morning, the princess felt tired and weary. When she came down to breakfast, the prince, the king, the queen greeted her eagerly. "Did you sleep well?" asked the queen. "I'm afraid not," sighed the princess. "There was something small and hard in the bed, and no matter which way I tossed and turned, I still felt it. I'm dreadfully tired, for I hardly slept at all." "I'm so sorry," said the queen, "but I'm delighted. For this proves that you are indeed a real princess. Only a real princess would feel a tiny pea under 20 mattresses and 20 quilts." The prince was overjoyed, for he had already fallen in love with the princess, and she had fallen in love with him, and so they were married. They had a splendid wedding, and they invited all the royal families of all the kingdoms the prince had visited. And what happened to the pea? It was put on a velvet cushion in a glass case and sent to the museum, where it's still on display to this very day. Wow, the end. The end. And I'm guessing they lived happily ever after. So thank you guys so much for joining me while I read The Princess and the Pea. On the back it says there, standing in the doorway was the most bedraggled young woman the king had ever seen. Rain ran down her hair and face, and her clothes were sopping wet and muddy. Water ran in through the toes of her shoes and out again through the heels. So they couldn't really tell it was a real princess. But the mom, she knew how to figure that out. The fabulous tale of The Princess and the Pea has been retold from a traditional story written by Hans Christian Andersen. Now, this book was retold by Ron Randall, illustrated by Anna C. Leplar. So thank you guys so much for being here and joining me. Don't forget, tune in to Audrey's Reading Area. I'm not sure if I'm going to be here on Monday. It's a holiday. I'm not sure. I'll try to be here for you guys. Depends. We'll see. But again, hit like. Please hit like. Please go to YouTube and go on to Audrey's Reading Area and hit subscribe. And see you again next week, live at 5. See you soon.